Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show for you pragmatic progressives. Did you like my alliteration? So you say you're never Bernie. Then say hello to 4 more years of Trump. You're welcome. How's that for pragmatism? Among voters who lean Democrat, the fear of Donald Trump, true even for Republican-leaning never-Trump voters, far outweighs any fear of Bernie Sanders among those likely to vote in the Democratic primaries. Although the plutocrats present a different story, most mere cronies of the plutocrats would rather have Bernie than Trump. That includes most Warren supporters. Bernie's loyalty, stickiness, in the words of MEAGAN Day of Jacobin magazine, Bernie's loyalty numbers are much higher than anyone else's, including Biden's. Therefore, Bernie supporters are the only faction truly capable of applying any meaningful electoral leverage when it comes to the primary contests. The loyalty, stickiness of Bernie or Trump voters combined with the loyalty, stickiness of Bernie or bust voters virtually guarantees that no other Democratic candidate has even a remote chance of winning the general election. I'm going to jump over here to MSDNC for a minute just to surprise you.
A name that has not come up for us in the last couple of minutes is Bernie Sanders. Certainly did, and that's something Bernie Sanders associates himself with. I think one thing, though, that needs to be kept in mind when we look at Sanders on that stage tonight and his chances going forward, it's this. These are the favorable, unfavorable scores among Democratic voters for all the Democratic candidates. This is from just a couple days ago, and you can see it. Top of the list, the most popular Democratic candidate with Democratic voters, just in terms of favorable, unfavorable. It's Bernie Sanders, 75-18. That's a little bit better than Biden, Warren, Booker, Buttigieg. You go down to the bottom of the list right there. I think it's worth keeping in mind because of this. When you ask Democrats that question we showed earlier on electability, Sanders does not fare well there. But he is different than you would normally think a factional candidate would be, a candidate who's not a registered Democrat, a candidate who embraces the democratic socialism label. You would normally think a candidate like that would have a base and then would have a lot of folks in the party who are opposed to him. But what you see here is folks in the Democratic Party, they almost all know who he is, and 3/4 of them have a favorable view of him. I think it's worth keeping in mind if there is a scenario where Sanders can somehow win Iowa. You've been talking about how important that is. If he could win Iowa and he could win New Hampshire, there might be a lot of Democrats out there around the country who like him and who get on the bandwagon in that situation.
Okay, that's not an unlikely scenario. Might be. Okay, here's analysis of a recent poll by Emerson Polling. This is from Inquisitor.com. I'll link to it so you can find it. Actually, I'll link to this article and then you can find it. Sanders' biggest strength, the poll suggests, is supporter commitment. 71% of Sanders supporters say they will definitely vote for him. 60% of Biden supporters said they are unlikely to change their minds, as are 46% of Warren supporters. Buttigieg's support appears to be the most fragile, given that only 31% of his supporters say they will definitely vote for him. Those are the wine cave voters. We know they're fickle, I guess. That's what Crystal Ball says. As director of Emerson Polling, Spencer Kimball put it, Biden and Sanders continue to hold their bases, which should concern Warren as she has waited for one of the frontrunners to slip these past few months. Yet their support seems to be crystallizing. Furthermore, according to the poll, Sanders is the only Democratic presidential candidate who would beat President Donald Trump in the general election. Add that one to a long, long list. Jacobin's MEAGAN Day, she's the one I think should run for president, and Matt KARP offer additional information for pragmatists. When people say that Sanders is a risk, they usually mean that his platform and his rhetoric are too far outside the Democratic political mainstream for comfort. But at this juncture in history, comfort itself is a risk. The right has taken advantage of the public's appetite for transformation in order to further enrich the masters of the universe. I love that sentence. I want to frame that. what do I do? Macrame. I want to put that up in a frame and put it on my wall in macrame. The right has taken advantage of the public's appetite for transformation in order to further enrich the masters of the universe. His opponents will have to take advantage of that same appetite to do the very opposite. Sanders' ambitious agenda represents a dramatic departure from the neoliberal democratic consensus, and that's exactly what we need to win. If we want to beat Trump and build a countervailing force capable of taking on the systems and institutions that produced him, we can't afford not to nominate Bernie Sanders. Here's another cogent argument from the same article. There is reason to believe that on purely hard-headed electoral grounds, Sanders is the Democrat with the best chance to win back disaffected Obama supporters in the Rust Belt. Targeted polling of Obama-Trump voters shows Sanders and Joe Biden with a significant edge over Elizabeth Warren in Michigan and Wisconsin. While Biden still seems strongest in Pennsylvania, the differences are small. So in all three of those states, targeted polling of Obama-Trump voters shows Sanders and Biden with a significant edge over Elizabeth Warren. But the real kicker is that in the 206 counties that went for Obama in 2008 and 2012 and then switched to Trump in 2016, Sanders has out-fundraised all of his competitors by a long shot. By September 2019, he pulled in 81,841 individual donations from 33,185 donors in these flipped counties. That's roughly 3 times as many as Biden, Warren, or Pete Buttigieg. This high volume of individual small dollar donations in Obama-Trump counties and the sticky support it indicates shows that Sanders has strong grassroots support in those places, which makes sense given that his political message is targeted to people whose lives get harder as elites grow richer. That captures the experience of many working-class people in the deindustrialized Rust Belt, abandoned by corporations in search of cheaper labor and higher profits elsewhere. The most detailed study of these decisive swing voters comes from 2 Johns Hopkins political scientists who recently confirmed what other analysts have understood for a while. Economic anxiety did, in fact, play a crucial role in the 2016 election. A close look at the American National Election Survey data shows that Obama-Trump voters in 2016 were on average more worried about their current financial situation than either Romney-Trump or Obama-Clinton voters, the wine track voters. Obama-Trump voters were also far more likely than party-line Republicans, and just as likely as party-line Democrats, to believe that rich people buy elections and to support higher taxes on the rich. And they were more likely than both Republicans or Democrats to oppose free trade agreements that cost American jobs. Trump wooed and won these Obama voters, the Johns Hopkins authors conclude, with a combination of bandwagon bigotry and economic populism. In 2020, Republicans will surely attempt to fire up the bigotry machine again. If Democrats cannot answer with a credible alternative economic agenda, one that spells real change, they are doomed to lose these voters all over again, and probably the election too. Despite his residual popularity among Democrats stemming from the Obama years, now fading fast, Joe Biden cannot deliver this message. The other point is, let's go back a sentence. If Democrats cannot answer with a credible alternative economic agenda, one that spells real change, they are doomed to lose these voters all over again. I would substitute in that sentence, if they nominate Elizabeth Warren, then the results will be the same as they were with Hillary Clinton, because they cannot answer with a credible alternative economic agenda if capitalist to her bones Elizabeth Warren is trying to lead the Democratic Party. It's just ridiculous to think that that's going to happen. Given this information, it should be apparent to most informed voters, such as those who typically vote in primaries, and we should say here that the statistics are staggering between the number of people who vote in primaries versus the number of people who vote in the general election. That's also in this article, so go read the whole article. It's a lengthy and well-researched and very insightful article. So go back and read it. It'll tell you that the number of voters, they call him the sleeping giant, because the number of voters who do not vote in the primaries is a huge number compared to the number who vote in the generals. And then they also have a number of voters who don't vote at all for either. And they are the sleeping giant that Bernie has the best chance of waking up. Biden certainly is not, and Elizabeth Warren certainly is not. And Buttigieg certainly is not. Bernie is the one who can waken this sleeping giant. But we have to get him the nomination first. So, given this information, should be apparent to people who pay attention, people who vote in the primaries, that the stubborn loyalty of Sanders supporters, particularly voters in the Rust Belt who have become unemployed due to pernicious trade agreements, will again preclude support for a corporate candidate come November. They're just not going to vote for a corporate sock puppet in November. Therefore, true pragmatism is reading the writing on the wall and uniting behind Sanders before it's too late. I would really appreciate it if you could share this article around, as well as this Bernie or Bust segment episode, and that people that you know, the diehard Blue Dog Democrats who watch MSDNC, show them this little clip I played for you is from MSDNC, and they're saying, look, and they show a graphic with Bernie Sanders' name on the top. It's funny in the other instances where they put his name lower, even when his numbers are the best. This is a little bit shocking, I have to say. So there's a point for MSNBC, MSNDNC, and you have to give them credit. Even though they did talk about Bernie as a socialist in a disparaging way, even though they sound like right-wingers when they talk, they put his name on the top. And one other thing about that graph that this guy's pointing to, if you look at the unfavorable numbers, you've got Elizabeth Warren's unfavorable numbers higher than Bernie's. You've got Joe Biden higher than Bernie's. And the other people, Michael Bloomberg has very high unfavorable. And then everyone else is close to the same as Bernie. Amy Klobuchar has low unfavorables, the lowest on the list. And Andrew Yang, too, the lowest on the list. But they also have fairly low favorable ratings. So Bernie, he's the guy. You got to get on board the Bernie or Bust train. I'll let you sing that as you go. Feel free to sing it to all the boomers you know. I keep reminding you of that. And please share this information before we get to the primaries. Happy holidays, and keep on burning.
Get on board the Bernie or Bust train. Come get on board the Bernie or Bust train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back.